The child's lips were blue. Kang Minho noticed this from across the street, through the window of his black Genesis sedan, parked in the shadow of a shuttered restaurant. He wasn't supposed to be here. Hongdae at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday was too visible, too loud, too full of college students and tourists who might remember a face. But he'd followed her here anyway, the way he had been following her for 6 months. And now a child was dying on the sidewalk outside a 7-Eleven, and she was the only one who'd stopped. The woman, Han Jisoo, 28 years old, social worker, daughter of a dead man, dropped to her knees without hesitation. No crowd had formed yet. The mother was screaming in English, a tourist useless with panic. Jisoo's hands moved with the speed of someone who'd done this before. She tilted the boy's head back, checked his airway, and drove her fist into his sternum with the heel of her palm. Minho watched her face. Calm? Focused. She wasn't praying. She was counting. The boy convulsed. A chunk of tteokbokki rice cake shot out of his throat and skittered across the pavement. He gasped. The mother collapsed over him, sobbing. Jisoo sat back on her heels, breathing hard, and wiped her hands on her jeans. No one thanked her. She stood, brushed off her knees, and walked into the convenience store like nothing had happened. Minho's driver glanced at him in the rearview mirror. Sir? Wait. He didn't look away from the window. Jisoo emerged 2 minutes later with a single bottle of water and a triangle kimbap. She ate standing up, leaning against the glass, watching the mother and child disappear into a taxi. Her expression was unreadable. Not proud, not shaken, just tired. She'd saved a life. 12 years ago, Minho had taken one. The same year. The same month, actually. August 2014. He'd been 23, newly promoted, still stupid enough to think loyalty was a virtue. His Jopak, his boss, his father in every way that mattered, had placed a photograph on the desk between them and said, "This prosecutor has a daughter, 16. If you don't do this, she'll be an orphan by morning anyway. At least if it's you, it'll be quick." The prosecutor's name had been Han Jisoo. The daughter's name had been Han Jisoo. Minho had put 2 bullets in the man's chest in an underground parking garage in Gangnam. Clean, professional. The body had been found 4 hours later. The case had gone cold in 6 months. Jisoo had been in school when it happened. She'd come home to police tape and a mother who stopped speaking. He knew all of this because he'd made it his business to know. At first, it had been insurance. You kill a prosecutor, you watch the family. You make sure no one comes looking. But Jisoo never looked. She'd folded into herself, dropped out of university, worked nights at a pojangmatcha to pay her mother's medical bills. The mother had died 3 years later. Jisoo had kept working, and Minho had kept watching. He told himself it was strategic, a loose end, a liability. But 6 months ago, something had shifted. He'd been sitting in this same car parked outside the children's shelter where she volunteered on weekends, and he'd watched her crouch down to tie a little girl's shoelaces. The girl had been crying. Jisoo had made her laugh. It had been such a small thing. Insignificant. It had destroyed him. Now she finished her kimbap, tossed the wrapper in a bin, and started walking north toward the subway. Minho's hand moved to the door handle. "Sir," his driver said again, quieter this time. "We have the meeting in an hour." "I know." "If you're late." "I know." He opened the door. The night air was thick with humidity and the smell of fried chicken from a nearby cart. Jisoo was half a block ahead, moving with the efficient stride of someone who'd learned not to waste time. Minho followed at a distance, hands in the pockets of his wool coat, his face angled down. He looked like any other businessman heading home late. She stopped at a crosswalk. He stopped 10 feet behind her. The light changed. She stepped into the street. A motorcycle courier cut the corner too sharp, veering into the crosswalk. Jisoo stumbled back. Minho's hand shot out and caught her elbow before she could fall. She turned. For the first time in 12 years, Han Jisoo looked directly at Kang Minho. Her eyes were dark, exhausted, still kind. "Thank you," she said. He let go of her arm like it had burned him. "No problem." She smiled, brief, reflexive, and kept walking. Minho stood in the middle of the crosswalk as the light turned red again. Horns blared. He didn't move. His driver pulled up beside him, window down. "Sir, please." Minho got back in the car. "Find out where she's going," he said. The driver's face was stone. "We already know where she's going. She's going home." "Then find out what she needs." "Sir?" "Find out what she needs," Minho repeated, "and make sure she gets it." The driver said nothing. He turned the wheel and followed her taillights into the narrow streets of Gyeongbuk-dong, where the streetlights flickered and the apartments leaned against each other like old men. Minho watched her disappear into a basement entrance. He wondered if mercy was something you could buy. He wondered if she'd still smile at him if she knew his name. The basement apartment had a window. Technically, it was 8 inches tall, ground level, and it covered by a metal grate that hadn't been cleaned in years. During the day, if Jisoo pressed her face to the glass, she could see ankles, shoes, sometimes a stray cat. At night, it showed her nothing but her own reflection against the dark. She unlocked the door, 2 deadbolts, 1 chain, and stepped into the smell of mildew and instant ramyeon. The space was 12 pyong, maybe less. A bed that folded into the wall, a hot plate on top of a mini fridge, a bathroom so small she had to stand sideways to close the door. She'd lived here for 9 years. It cost 300,000 won a month. She was 3 months behind. Jisoo dropped her bag on the floor and sat on the edge of the bed without turning on the light. Her hands were still shaking. Not from the child. She'd done the Heimlich twice before, once on a teenager at the shelter, once on an elderly man at the Poyeongmatcha where she used to work. She knew how to stay calm when someone was dying. But the man at the crosswalk, his hand on her elbow, the way he'd looked at her. She couldn't place it. The expression, like he'd seen a ghost, like she was the ghost. Jisoo pulled out her phone. No messages. She opened her banking app. W47,000 in her account. Payday was Friday, rent was due tomorrow. The landlord had stopped answering her calls. She closed the app and opened her photos instead. The album was called Dad. 43 pictures. Most of them were scanned from physical photographs her mother had kept in a shoebox. Her father in his prosecutor's robes, her father holding her as a baby. Her father teaching her to ride a bike in Olympic Park, one hand on the seat, laughing. The last photo was from his funeral. Jisoo had been 16. She'd worn her school uniform because they couldn't afford a black dress. Her mother had stood beside her silent, her face like carved stone. The police had told them it was a robbery. Wrong place, wrong time. The killer had never been found. 12 years. She still dreamed about the parking garage sometimes. She'd never been there, the police wouldn't let her see the scene. But her mind had built it anyway. Concrete, fluorescent lights. Her father's briefcase on the ground, papers scattered. 2 bullets. That's what the coroner had said. 2 bullets to the chest. He'd died in less than a minute. Jisoo closed the photo and set the phone face down on the bed. She should eat. She should shower. She should sleep. Instead, she pulled a notebook from under her pillow and opened it to the last page. The hospital debt was old. Her mother had been dead for 9 years, but the collections agency still called every 3 months like clockwork. Jisoo had stopped answering. She clicked her pen and started writing a new list. She stared at the blank space after the 5. There was no 5. A knock at the door made her jump. She froze. It was past 10. The landlord didn't come this late. No one came this late. Another knock, softer this time. Jisoo stood and moved to the door, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She looked through the peephole. A man in a suit. Mid-30s, unfamiliar. He was holding a briefcase and looking at his phone. Han Jisoo? He called through the door. Her mouth went dry. Debt collector. It had to be. I'm not interested, she said. I'm not selling anything. His voice was calm, professional. I'm here on behalf of Kang Minho. He'd like to offer you a position. Jisoo frowned. I don't know who that is. He's a businessman. Import-export. He saw your resume online and thought you'd be a good fit for an administrative role. I didn't post my resume online. A pause. May I slide my card under the door? Jisoo didn't answer. After a moment, a business card appeared beneath the door, white and pristine. She picked it up. The back of the card had a handwritten note in clean, precise Hangul. W 3,000 ITs a month. Start Monday. No experience necessary. Jisoo read it 3 times. 3,000,001. That was more than all 3 of her current jobs combined. She opened the door. The man was already walking away. He stopped when he heard the chain rattle. "What kind of administrative work?" she asked. He turned. His face was bland, forgettable. "Scheduling, correspondence, client relations, standard office work." "Why me?" "Mr. Kang believes you have the right disposition." "He doesn't know me." The man's expression didn't change. "He's a good judge of character." Jisoo looked down at the card again. The number seemed to glow. "I'll think about it," she said. "He hopes to hear from you by Friday." The man bowed slightly and walked up the stairs to the street. Jisoo closed the door, locked it, stared at the card. She didn't believe in luck. Luck was for people who hadn't watched their father bleed out in a parking garage. Luck was for people whose mothers didn't die from heartbreak disguised as pneumonia. But 3,000,001. She could pay her rent, pay the hospital, buy the kids at the shelter new winter coats that actually fit. She set the card on top of her notebook. Her hands had stopped shaking. Outside, through the 8-inch window, a pair of black leather shoes walked past, then stopped, then walked back. Jisoo watched the shoes stand there for a long moment before finally moving on. She didn't know why, but she felt like she was being measured, and she didn't know if she'd passed or failed. Jisoo called the number on Thursday night. She'd spent 2 days trying to talk herself out of it. She'd searched Myeongdo Logistics online and found a clean corporate website with stock photos of shipping containers and smiling office workers. She'd checked business registrations. Legitimate, registered in 2019, tax compliant. She'd even called the Better Business Bureau equivalent. No complaints. Everything looked normal. That's what scared her. Normal people didn't offer 3,000,001 to someone they'd never met. Normal people didn't send men in suits to basement apartments at 10 at night. Normal people didn't leave business cards with handwritten job offers. But normal people also didn't live in moldy rooms and eat triangle kimbap for dinner 4 nights a week. The phone rang twice before someone picked up. Myeongdo Logistics. A woman's voice, young, cheerful. "Hi, I'm calling about a position? Someone left me a card? Han Jisoo? Jisoo's stomach dropped. "Yes." "Perfect. Mr. Kang has been expecting your call. Can you come in tomorrow? 10 a.m.? Yes. Where?" The woman gave her an address in Gangnam, Nonhyundong, the kind of neighborhood where Jisoo only went when she had to accompany a shelter kid to a specialist appointment. "What should I bring?" "Just yourself. We'll have everything ready." The line went dead before Jisoo could ask anything else. She stared at her phone. "We'll have everything ready." What did that mean? The building was glass and steel, 12 stories, with a lobby that had marble floors and a security desk staffed by 2 men in identical black suits. Jisoo checked the address 3 times before walking in. "Han Jisoo," she told the guard. "I have an appointment." He looked at his tablet, nodded, and handed her a visitor badge. 11th floor, someone will meet you." The elevator had mirrors on 3 sides. Jisoo watched herself rise. Cheap coat, scuffed shoes, hair pulled back in the same ponytail she'd worn since high school. She looked exactly like what she was, someone who didn't belong here. The doors opened. A woman in a tailored navy dress was waiting, the same voice from the phone. "Jisoo, welcome. I'm Mireille, Mr. Kang's executive assistant." She smiled and gestured down a hallway lined with frosted glass offices. "This way." Jisoo followed her past open workspaces where people typed quietly at computers, past a break room with an espresso machine that probably cost more than Jisoo's yearly rent, past floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the Gangnam skyline. Mirai stopped at a door at the end of the hall. Solid wood, a brass nameplate, Kang Minho, CEO. She knocked twice and opened it without waiting for an answer. The office was bigger than Jisoo's apartment. A desk made of dark wood, bookshelves lined with leather spines, a sitting area with low chairs and a glass coffee table. And behind the desk, standing with his back to the door, looking out at the city, the man from the crosswalk. Jisoo's breath caught. He turned. For a moment, neither of them spoke. He looked different in daylight. Older than she'd thought. 34, maybe 35. Sharp jaw, dark eyes that didn't blink enough. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, and he wore it like armor. "Ms. Han," he said. His voice was lower than she remembered, controlled. "Thank you for coming." Mirai bowed and left, closing the door behind her. Jisoo stood in the center of the room, her visitor badge still clipped to her coat. She started. "We've met." He gestured to one of the chairs. "Please, sit." She didn't move. "You grabbed my arm at the crosswalk. You were about to fall. And then you sent someone to my apartment." "I sent someone to offer you a job." "Why?" Kang Minho studied her for a long moment. Then he walked to his desk, picked up a folder, and held it out to her. Jisoo took it. Inside was a contract. Her name was already printed at the top. She flipped through the pages. Everything was there. Vacation days, overtime policies, even a clause about educational reimbursement if she wanted to finish her degree. It was the kind of contract people spent years working toward. "I don't understand," she said quietly. "What don't you understand?" "Why me? I'm not qualified for this. I don't have experience in—" "You have exactly what I need." "Which is?" He didn't answer right away. He walked back to the window, hands in his pockets, and looked out at the city like he was searching for something he'd lost. "I need someone who won't ask questions," he said finally. Jisoo's grip tightened on the folder. "What kind of questions?" "The kind that waste time." He turned to face her. "I run a logistics company. We move products across borders. It's legal, it's profitable, and it's boring. What I need is someone who can manage my schedule, handle correspondence, and keep things organized, that's all." "Then hire someone with a business degree." "Business degrees teach people to ask questions." "And you think I won't?" His eyes locked on hers. "I think you're smart enough to know when a good opportunity is in front of you." The words hung in the air. Jisoo looked down at the contract again. 3,000,001. Health insurance, a way out of the basement. "What's the catch?" she asked. "No catch." "Everyone has a catch." Kang Minho smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "The catch is that you'll be working for me. Some people find that difficult." "Are you difficult?" "I'm honest." Jisoo didn't believe him. Everything about this felt wrong. The too generous salary, the too convenient timing, the way he looked at her like he already knew what she was going to say. But 3,000,001. She thought about the landlord, the hospital debt, the kids at the shelter who needed winter coats. She thought about her father who'd spent his whole life doing the right thing and died alone in a parking garage. Doing the right thing hadn't saved him. Maybe it was time to stop trying. "I'll start Monday," she said. Kang Minho nodded once. "Mirai will show you to your desk." Jisoo turned to leave. "Ms. Han." She stopped. "Welcome to Myeongdo." She walked out without looking back. Behind her, Kang Minho stood alone in his office and stared at the place where she'd been standing. He'd just made the worst mistake of his life. And he couldn't stop. Jisoo's desk was outside Kang Minho's office. Not beside it, not near it. Outside it. A glass barrier separated them. Transparent, soundproof, impossible to ignore. She could see him at all times. He could see her. It felt less like an office arrangement and more like surveillance. Mirai had shown her the computer system on Monday morning. Email protocols, filing systems, calendar management. Everything was digital, encrypted, password protected. Jisoo had expected chaos, the kind of disorganized mess that required an actual assistant. But Minho's schedule was already immaculate. Color-coded. Time-blocked down to 15-minute intervals. He didn't need her to organize his life. So what did he need her for? By Wednesday, she'd figured out the real job. Be visible, be quiet, and don't look too closely at the men who came and went from his office. They arrived in pairs, usually, always in dark suits. They never smiled. They spoke in low voices and left without saying goodbye. Some carried briefcases. Others carried nothing at all, which somehow felt worse. Jisoo kept her head down and answered email. She printed it. She didn't read it, she shredded it. This was the pattern. Instructions without context. Tasks without explanation. And every day at exactly 6 p.m., he walked past her desk and said the same thing. You can go home now. Not thank you. Not good work today. Just permission to leave. On Thursday, she stayed late anyway. She told herself it was to catch up on filing, but really she wanted to see what happened after hours. Who came? Who left? What kind of business required this much secrecy? At 7:30 p.m., the elevator opened. 3 men stepped out. They weren't wearing suits. They were wearing leather jackets and boots, and one of them had a bandage wrapped around his left hand, blood seeping through the gauze. Jisoo stood up from her desk. The man in front, older, scarred across his cheek, looked at her like she was a stain on the carpet. Who the fuck are you? I work here. Since when? Since Monday. He turned to one of the others. Did you know about this? The man shrugged. Scarface walked to Minho's door and opened it without knocking. Jisoo heard Minho's voice, sharp and cold. I said 8:00. We have a problem. Then come back at 8:00. Daehyun's dead. Silence. Then movement. Minho appeared in the doorway. His expression hadn't changed, but something in his posture had shifted. He looked past the men to Jisoo. Go home, he said. I'm not finished. Now. It wasn't a request. Jisoo grabbed her bag and walked to the elevator. She pressed the button and waited, her back to them, her heart beating too fast. She could feel them watching her. The elevator doors opened. She stepped inside. Just before the doors closed, she heard Scarface say, You trust her? And Minho's reply, No, but she's useful. Jisoo didn't go home. She went to the shelter. It was in Seongbukdong, a 20-minute subway ride from Gangnam, tucked between a pharmacy and a shuttered restaurant. The sign above the door said, Hope House. In faded Hangul, Jisoo had volunteered here for 6 years. It was the only place that still felt real. Inside, chaos. 12 kids between the ages of 6 and 14, all talking at once. Dinner was almost ready. Jjigae and rice, donated by a restaurant in Hyewa. Jisoo rolled up her sleeves and started setting the table. Uni! A girl named Sua ran up and hugged her legs. You're late! I know, sorry. Did you bring candy? Not today? Sua pouted but didn't let go. The shelter director, a woman in her 50s named Mrs. Moon, appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She looked exhausted. She always looked exhausted. Jisoo, you didn't have to come tonight. I wanted to. Mrs. Moon studied her face. You look tired. I'm fine. New job treating you okay? Jisoo nodded. She'd told Mrs. Moon about Myeongdo but kept the details vague. Office work, better pay, nothing special. Mrs. Moon didn't press. She just handed Jisoo a ladle. Help me serve? They fed the kids. They cleaned up. They sang a song before bed. Something about stars and dreams that Jisoo had learned when she was young enough to believe in both. Afterward, when the kids were asleep, Mrs. Moon poured 2 cups of tea and sat across from Jisoo at the scratched wooden table. Something's wrong, she said. Nothing's wrong. You're lying. Jisoo wrapped her hands around the cup. The warmth helped. The job is strange, she admitted. Strange how? I don't know. The pay is too good. My boss barely talks to me. And the people who come to the office... She stopped. They don't look like businessmen. Mrs. Moon's face darkened. What do they look like? Jisoo thought about Scarface. The blood on the bandage. The way Minho had looked when he heard the name Daehyun. Dangerous, she said quietly. Mrs. Moon set down her cup. Then quit. I can't. Why not? Because I need the money. Because I'm 3 months behind on rent. Because... Jisoo's voice cracked. She stopped, took a breath. Because I don't have another option. Mrs. Moon reached across the table and squeezed her hand. There's always another option. Not for people like me. They sat in silence. Outside, a siren wailed past. A dog barked. The city kept moving, indifferent. Jisoo finished her tea and stood. I should go. Be careful, Jisoo. I will. She walked to the subway station, her hands shoved in her pockets, her mind replaying the conversation she'd overheard. Daehyun's dead. Who was Daehyun? Why did it matter? And why had Minho looked at her like that? Like she was a problem he hadn't figured out how to solve yet. She reached her apartment at 11 p.m. The light in the stairwell was broken again. She climbed down into the dark, unlocked her door, and froze. Someone had been inside. Nothing was missing. Nothing was moved. But there was an envelope on her bed. Plain, white, unsealed. Jisoo opened it with shaking hands. Inside, W2,000 in cash, and a note in the same precise handwriting as the business card. For the shelter, don't ask questions. Jisoo sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the money. She should have been grateful. Instead, she felt like she'd just signed a contract she didn't understand. And the price was going to be higher than 3 million won. The boy's name was Min. Jisoo learned this on Saturday afternoon when Mrs. Moon called her, voice tight with something between panic and exhaustion. We have a new intake, 8 years old. Police brought him in an hour ago. He won't stop crying. Jisoo was at a laundromat in Seongbuk-dong, watching her clothes tumble through soap-streaked glass. She pulled the phone away from her ear and checked the time. 2:47 p.m. I can be there in 20 minutes. Thank you, I don't... Mrs. Moon's voice cracked. I don't know what to do with him. He keeps asking for his father. Jisoo closed her eyes. Where's the father? Silence, then. Dead. Some kind of gang violence. The police wouldn't give me details. Jisoo's stomach turned. I'm on my way. She left her laundry half-finished and Hope House smelled like disinfectant and old soup. Jisoo pushed through the front door and found Mrs. Moon in the hallway, holding a cup of juice and looking helpless. He's in the reading corner, she whispered. He won't let anyone touch him. Jisoo walked into the main room. The other kids were watching TV, some cartoon about robots. But they kept glancing toward the corner where a small figure sat, curled against the bookshelf, face buried in his knees. Jisoo recognized him immediately. The boy from the convenience store. The one who'd been choking. The one she'd saved. Her chest tightened. She crossed the room slowly and crouched down a few feet away from him. She didn't say anything at first, just sat. Let him know she was there. After a long moment, the boy lifted his head. His face was swollen from crying. His eyes were red and raw, but he recognized her too. You, he whispered. Hi, Min. How do you know my name? Mrs. Moon told me. Jisoo kept her voice soft. Do you remember me? He nodded. You saved me. You saved yourself. I just helped. Min wiped his nose with the back of his hand. My dad said I should thank you. He said... His voice broke. He said you were an angel. Jisoo felt something crack inside her chest. Where's your dad now? She asked gently, even though she already knew. Min's face crumpled. He's gone. The police said... They said someone hurt him. They said he's not coming back. Jisoo moved closer. Can I sit next to you? Min nodded. She sat against the bookshelf beside him, shoulder to shoulder, both of them staring at the room full of kids who'd learned too early that the world was cruel. I lost my dad too, Jisoo said quietly. Min looked at her. Really? Really, I was 16. Someone hurt him and he didn't come back either. Does it stop hurting? Jisoo thought about the parking garage, the funeral, the 12 years of silence. No, she said honestly, but it gets quieter. Min leaned against her. She put her arm around him. They sat like that for a long time. That night, Jisoo stayed at the shelter until every kid was asleep. Min had finally stopped crying around 9 p.m., exhausted himself into unconsciousness on one of the small cots in the boys' room. Mrs. Moon had covered him with a blanket and stood in the doorway, watching him breathe. The police said his father owed money to the wrong people, Mrs. Moon said quietly. They said it was a message killing. Jisoo's hands curled into fists. A message. That's what they called it. Who did it? They don't know, or they won't say. Mrs. Moon turned to look at Jisoo. Either way, that boy is ours now. No other family. No one to take him. Jisoo looked at Min's sleeping face. He looked so small, so breakable. We'll take care of him, she said. With what money? Mrs. Moon's voice was bitter. We're barely keeping the lights on as it is. The city cut our funding again. We have 12 kids and I can't even afford to buy them new shoes. Jisoo thought about the envelope. The 2 million won sitting in her apartment, hidden under her mattress. For the shelter, don't ask questions. She should have asked questions. She should have thrown the money away. Instead, she'd kept it. And now she knew why. I'll get the money, Jisoo said. Mrs. Moon frowned. How? I just will. On Monday morning, Jisoo arrived at Myeongdo Logistics at 8:40 a.m. Kang Minho was already at his desk. She knocked on his door. He looked up from his computer, surprised. She never knocked. She never initiated. Come in. Jisoo stepped inside and closed the door behind her. I need to ask you for something, she said. Minho leaned back in his chair. Go ahead. The children's shelter where I volunteer. We need help, security, protection. His expression didn't change. From what? There's a boy, 8 years old. His father was killed by a gang last week. I don't know which gang, I don't know why, but I need to make sure they don't come looking for the kid. Minho was silent for a long moment. Why would they come looking for a child? I don't know. Maybe they wouldn't, but I can't take that risk. And you think I can help with this? You have resources. Jisoo's voice was steady. You have people. I've seen them. What people? The ones who come to your office at night. The ones who don't look like businessmen. Minho's jaw tightened. You should be careful what you see. I'm already careful. That's why I'm asking you instead of the police. He stood up and walked to the window. For a long time he said nothing, just stared out at the city like he was calculating the cost of something. Finally, he turned. I'll take care of it. Jisoo exhaled. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. His eyes were dark, unreadable. If I do this, the shelter becomes my responsibility. That means I decide who protects it. I decide how, and you don't ask questions. Understood? Jisoo hesitated. This was a door. Once she walked through it, she couldn't walk back. She thought about Min's face, the way he'd curled against the bookshelf. The way he'd asked if the pain ever stopped. Understood, she said. Minho nodded once. Go back to your desk. She left. Behind the closed door, Kang Minho stood alone and stared at the place where she'd been standing. The boy's father had been killed by the Sinpa crew, Minho's rivals. The same crew that had been pushing into his territory for 6 months. The same crew he'd been preparing to erase. And now Han Jisoo, the daughter of the man he'd murdered, had just asked him to start a war, to protect a child. He picked up his phone and made a call. It's me, he said. I need a team at Hope House in Seongbuk-dong. 24-hour watch, no one gets close. A pause. I don't care what it costs, just do it. He hung up. Outside his office, through the glass, he watched Jisoo sit down at her desk and open her email. She had no idea what she'd just set in motion, and he had no idea how to stop it. 3 weeks passed, nothing happened. No gang members appeared at the shelter. No threats. No violence, just silence. The kind that felt heavy, like waiting for thunder after lightning. Min had stopped crying every night. He'd started eating breakfast. He'd even smiled once when Sua showed him how to fold paper cranes. Small victories, fragile ones. And outside Hope House, on the corner across the street, 2 men sat in a black sedan. Every day, every night, they never left. Mrs. Moon had asked Jisoo about them once. Do you know those men? No, Jisoo lied. They've been there for weeks. Maybe they're waiting for someone. Mrs. Moon had looked at her for a long moment, then walked away. She knew Jisoo was lying. She just didn't know what the truth was. Neither did Jisoo. Not really. At Myeongdo, the office had become routine. Emails. Scheduling. Phone calls, she answered, but never understood. Minho barely spoke to her. He'd come in at 8 a.m., leave at 7 p.m., and spend the hours in between, locked in meetings with men whose names she didn't know. But sometimes late in the afternoon when the office was quiet, she'd catch him watching her through the glass. Not staring, just watching. Like he was waiting for something. On a Thursday in mid-September, Jisoo was filing documents in Minho's office while he was out at a meeting. The task was simple. Invoices, sorted by date, placed in labeled folders. Mindless work. She was reaching for the last stack of papers on his desk when her hand knocked against a picture frame, face down behind his monitor. She picked it up to set it upright, then stopped. The photograph was old, faded at the edges. It showed 3 men standing outside a restaurant, arms around each other's shoulders, laughing at something off camera. The man on the left was younger, broader, unfamiliar. The man in the middle was Kang Minho, maybe 10 years younger, his face softer, his smile genuine in a way Jisoo had never seen. And the man on the right, Jisoo's hands started shaking. She knew that face. She'd stared at it for 12 years. Her father, Han Jisoo, prosecutor, dead at 43, standing with his arm around Kang Minho. Smiling. Jisoo's breath came in short, shallow bursts. Her vision tunneled. The photograph trembled in her hands. Why did Minho have a picture of her father? Why were they together? Why had he never said anything? The door opened behind her. Jisoo spun around. Minho stood in the doorway, briefcase in hand. His eyes dropped to the photograph. His face went completely still. For 3 seconds, neither of them moved. Then Jisoo held up the frame. "Who is this?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. Minho set down his briefcase. Slowly. Carefully. "Put it down." "Who is this man?" She pointed to her father's face. The one on the right. "Jisoo, did you know this person?" Minho closed the door behind him. "Yes." "How?" "It's complicated." "How?" Her voice cracked. He didn't answer. Jisoo looked down at the photograph again, her father's smile, the way his hand rested on Minho's shoulder. Familiar. Friendly. "That's my father," she said quietly. Minho's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes. Recognition, or maybe guilt. "I know," he said. The room tilted. "You know?" Jisoo repeated the words like they were in a language she didn't understand. "You know?" "Yes." "How long have you known?" "Since the beginning." Her legs felt weak. She sat down in the chair behind her, still holding the photograph. "You knew who I was when you hired me?" "Yes." "You've known this whole time?" "Yes." Jisoo looked up at him. "Why didn't you tell me?" Minho walked to his desk and stood across from her. His face was unreadable, controlled, but his hands resting on the desk were clenched into fists. "Because I didn't know how," he said. "You didn't know how to say, 'I knew your father'? It's not that simple." "Then make it simple." Jisoo's voice was rising now. She didn't care. "Tell me how you knew him. Tell me why you have his picture. Tell me why you hired me." Minho looked at her for a long moment. "Your father was a good man," he said finally. "I know that. He tried to help people. I know that. And it got him killed." The words landed like a punch. Jisoo stared at him. "What did you just say?" Minho's jaw tightened. "Your father was investigating organized crime. He was building a case against people who don't like being investigated. He knew the risks. He did it anyway." "How do you know this?" "Because I was there." Jisoo stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. "What does that mean?" "It means I knew what he was doing. I knew the people he was going after, and I—" He stopped, his hands unclenched. "I couldn't stop what happened to him." "Couldn't or didn't?" Minho said nothing. Jisoo felt something cold and sharp settle in her chest. "You were part of it," she said slowly. "The world he was investigating. You were part of it." "Yes." "Are you still?" "Yes." The room was too small. The air was too thin. Jisoo couldn't breathe. "So when you hired me?" Her voice was shaking now. "When you gave me this job, when you sent money to the shelter, when you put men outside to protect those kids, that wasn't kindness. That was guilt." Minho looked at her with something that might have been pain. "Does it matter?" he asked quietly. "Yes." Jisoo slammed the photograph down on the desk. It matters because I trusted you. I thought... She stopped. Swallowed. I thought you were helping me because I deserved it, but you're just trying to pay off a debt. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Minho circled the desk and stood in front of her. Too close. She could see the exhaustion in his face, the lines around his eyes. I owed your father everything, he said, and I repaid him by doing nothing when he needed me most. So yes, I'm trying to pay a debt, but not to him. He paused. To you. Jisoo's eyes burned. I don't want your guilt. I know. I don't want your money. I know. I want... Her voice broke. I want my father back. Minho's face collapsed, just for a second. Then he rebuilt it, stone by stone. So do I, he whispered. Jisoo turned away. She couldn't look at him. Couldn't stand the weight of whatever this was. I need to go, she said. Jisoo, I need to go. She walked to the door. Her hand was on the handle when he spoke again. He talked about you. She stopped. Your father. He talked about you all the time. How smart you were. How kind. He said... Minho's voice was rough. He said you were the only thing he'd ever done right. Jisoo closed her eyes. Don't, she whispered. He would be proud of you. Don't! She opened the door and walked out. Behind her, Kang Minho stood alone in his office, staring at the photograph on his desk. 3 men, smiling. 2 of them were dead now, and the third had just destroyed the only good thing he'd tried to build. Jisoo didn't go back to work the next day, or the day after that. She sent a single text message to Mirai. I'm sick. I'll let you know when I can return. It wasn't a lie. She felt sick. Hollow. Like someone had reached inside her chest and rearranged everything she thought she knew. She spent Friday at the shelter, played with the kids, read them stories, avoided Mrs. Moon's concerned looks. She spent Saturday in her apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation with Minho over and over. Your father was investigating organized crime. I was there. I couldn't stop what happened to him. Couldn't, not didn't. What did that mean? On Sunday morning, Jisoo made a decision. She took the subway to Seochodong and walked into the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's office. The building was gray concrete and glass, imposing in the way government buildings always were. She'd been here once before, 12 years ago, sitting in a waiting room while detectives asked her mother questions she couldn't answer. The woman at the information desk looked up. Can I help you? I need to speak to someone about a closed case, a murder investigation. The woman's expression shifted, polite to bureaucratic. You'll need to submit a formal request. My father was the victim. Han Jisoo. August 2014. A pause. 1 moment. 20 minutes later, Jisoo was sitting across from a detective in his 50s. His nameplate said, Choi Sang-woo. His desk was covered in folders and coffee-stained papers. He remembered her father. Han Jisoo, he said, leaning back in his chair. Good man. Damn good prosecutor. I worked with him on 3 cases before he died. Do you know who killed him? Jisoo asked. Choi's face darkened. No, we had theories. No evidence. What theories? He studied her for a moment. Why are you asking now? It's been 12 years. Because I think I might know something. Choi sat forward. What do you know? Jisoo hesitated. If she told him about Minho, about the photograph, about the men in suits who came to his office, what would happen? Would Minho be arrested? Would the shelter lose its protection? Would Min be safe? Would justice even matter if it destroyed everything? I met someone, she said carefully. Someone who knew my father. He said my father was investigating organized crime when he died. Choi nodded slowly. That's true. Your father was building a case against a Jopakwo organization. The Myeongdo faction. They ran protection rackets, illegal gambling, loan sharking. He had evidence, witness testimony. He was weeks away from indictments. Myeongdo, the same name as Minho's company. Jisoo's stomach dropped. What happened to the case? She asked. It died with him. Witnesses disappeared. Evidence vanished. We couldn't prove anything. Choi's jaw tightened. Someone cleaned up. Someone with resources. Who led the organization? A man named Kang Minho. He's dead now. Heart attack 5 years ago. His son took over. His son? Yeah, Kang Minho. Runs a logistics company now. Legitimate as far as we can tell, but we've always suspected. He stopped. Looked at her. Why are you asking about this? Jisoo's throat was dry. The person who knew my father, it was Kang Minho. Choi went very still. You're working for him, he said quietly. I didn't know, not until last week. And now? Now I don't know what to do. Choi leaned forward, his voice urgent. Listen to me carefully. If Kang Minho hired you, it's not a coincidence. Men like him don't do anything without a reason. He either wants to control you or he wants to use you. Or he's trying to make amends. Choi laughed, sharp, bitter. Men like him don't make amends. They make excuses. Jisoo looked down at her hands. He said he couldn't stop what happened to my father. Couldn't or wouldn't? The same question she'd asked. I don't know. Choi pulled out a business card and slid it across the desk. If you want to know the truth, the real truth, you need to dig. Talk to people your father knew. Find out what he was working on in those last weeks. And if Kang Minho tries to stop you, he tapped the card. Call me. Jisoo took the card. What if he didn't do it? Then why does he have your father's photograph? She didn't have an answer. That night, Jisoo sat in her apartment with her father's case file spread across her bed. She'd requested copies from the prosecutor's office. 53 pages of reports, witness statements, crime scene photos. She'd avoided looking at them for 12 years. Now she forced herself to read every word. But buried in the witness statements, she found something. Prosecutor Han told me he was meeting someone the night he died. He wouldn't say who. He seemed nervous. He said if anything happened to him, I should look into the Myeongdo organization. He said there was someone inside. Someone helping him. Someone inside. Helping him. Jisoo read the line again. What if Minho hadn't been her father's enemy? What if he'd been his informant? Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. We need to talk. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. Yangjae Citizens Forest. Come alone. She stared at the message, then typed, Who is this? The response came immediately. Unknown number. Someone who knows what Kang Minho did and what he's still doing. Jisoo's hands trembled. She should call Detective Choi. She should delete the message. She should stay away. Instead, she typed, I'll be there. She didn't sleep that night. At 9:30 a.m., she took the subway to Yangjae. The forest was quiet, trees and walking paths, elderly people doing morning exercises, a few joggers. She found a bench near the pond and waited. At exactly 10 a.m., a man sat down beside her. He was in his 40s, thin, scarred hands. He didn't look at her. Han Jisoo, he said quietly. Who are you? My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I worked for Kang Minho. Minho's father? I was there the night your father died. Jisoo's breath caught. You saw it happen? I didn't just see it. The man's voice was flat, empty. I drove the car. The world stopped. I drove. Someone else pulled the trigger, but I was there. I helped clean up. I watched your father bleed out on that concrete floor. He finally turned to look at her. His eyes were dead. And I've been carrying it for 12 years. Jisoo couldn't speak, couldn't move. Why are you telling me this? She whispered. Because Kang Minho is lying to you. He's not trying to help you. He's trying to keep you quiet. And if you get too close to the truth... The man stood up. He'll do to you what his father did to your dad. Wait! But he was already walking away, disappearing into the trees. Jisoo sat on the bench shaking, the world spinning around her. Someone else pulled the trigger. Who? She pulled out her phone and called the only number she could think of. Minho answered on the first ring. We need to talk, she said. Now. They met at his office. It was Sunday. The building was empty. Just the two of them and the hum of fluorescent lights. Minho was standing by the window when she walked in. He didn't turn around. Someone contacted me, Jisoo said. Someone who was there the night my father died. Minho's shoulders tensed. What did they tell you? That you're lying, that you're using me, that if I get too close to the truth, you'll kill me too. He turned. His face was pale. And you believe that? I don't know what to believe anymore. Minho crossed the room and stopped 3 feet away from her, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes. The fear. Ask me, he said quietly. Whatever you want to know, ask me. Did you kill my father? No. Did you order it? No. Did you know it was going to happen? His jaw tightened. Yes. The word hung between them like a blade. Jisoo's voice shook. And you didn't stop it. I tried. I warned him. I told him to drop the investigation, to leave the country, to disappear. He wouldn't listen. Minho's hands curled into fists. My father gave the order. I was supposed to be there that night. I was supposed to pull the trigger. Jisoo stepped back. What? I refused. I told my father I wouldn't do it, so he sent someone else. His voice cracked, and I let it happen because I was a coward. Before Jisoo could respond, Minho's phone rang. He looked at the screen. His face went white. What? Jisoo asked. He answered. Listened. Then his eyes snapped to hers. The shelter, he said. They took his car. Minho drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic, running red lights. Jisoo gripped the door handle and tried to breathe. What happened? She asked. The Simpa crew. They hit the shelter. Your men. They're dead. Jisoo's world tilted. When they arrived, the street was chaos. Police lights, ambulances, a crowd of neighbors standing behind yellow tape. Jisoo pushed through and ran inside. The main room was destroyed, furniture overturned, blood on the walls. Mrs. Moon was sitting on the floor holding Sua, both of them crying. Where's Min? Jisoo screamed. Mrs. Moon looked up, her face pale. They took him. Jisoo's legs gave out. Minho caught her. Where did they go? A detective approached. We don't know. Witnesses said 3 men, black van, no plates. Minho pulled out his phone and made a call. Find them, he said. I don't care how. Find them now. He hung up and looked at Jisoo. I'll get him back, he said. How? His expression went cold, empty, by doing what I should have done 12 years ago. He turned and walked out. Jisoo watched him go, her heart pounding, her mind screaming. She'd asked for protection. Now she'd started a war, and Min was in the middle of it. They found the location in 4 hours, a warehouse in Guro, industrial district, abandoned for years. Minho arrived with 12 men, no police, no negotiations. Jisoo had followed in a taxi. She stood across the street, hidden behind a delivery truck, watching. She shouldn't be here. She knew that, but Min was inside. The first gunshot made her flinch, then more. Rapid fire. Shouting, glass shattering. It lasted 7 minutes. When the doors opened, Minho walked out carrying Min. The boy was unconscious but breathing. Blood on his shirt, not his. Behind them, Minho's men dragged out 3 bodies. Jisoo ran forward. Min. He's alive, Minho said. Drugged, but alive. An ambulance was already waiting at the corner. Minho had planned everything. They put Min inside. Mrs. Moon arrived moments later, climbing in beside him. Jisoo started to follow. Not yet, Minho said quietly. We need to talk. They stood in the empty street. Dawn was breaking. The city was waking up around them, indifferent. You killed them, Jisoo said. Yes. All of them. Yes. She looked at his hands. Blood on his knuckles, on his sleeves. This is who you are, she whispered. Minho didn't deny it. Yes. My father died trying to stop people like you. I know. And now I'm standing here watching you kill, and Her voice broke. I should hate you. You should. But you saved Min. That doesn't erase what I've done. Jisoo looked up at him. His face was exhausted, haunted, covered in someone else's blood. Did you know, she asked, the night my father died, did you know who was going to pull the trigger? Minho closed his eyes. Yes. Who was it? He opened his eyes. Looked directly at her. Me? The world stopped. What? I was supposed to do it. My father ordered me. I refused, so he sent his lieutenant instead. The man who contacted you, but the order came from me refusing. If I just obeyed... His voice cracked. Your father would have died by my hand. Clean. Quick. Instead, he suffered because I was too weak to do it and too weak to stop it. Jisoo couldn't breathe. So when you ask if I'm trying to pay a debt? Minho's face was raw, broken. I'm trying to pay for the worst thing I never did, and the second worst thing I did, which was nothing. Jisoo's hands were shaking. She'd wanted the truth. Now she had it, and it was worse than anything she'd imagined. I can't, she stepped back. I can't do this. I know. I need you to stay away from me, from the shelter. I will. I mean it. I know. She turned and walked toward the ambulance. Minho watched her go. Jisoo. She stopped but didn't turn around. Your father told me once that mercy isn't weakness, he said quietly. I never understood what he meant. Until you. Jisoo closed her eyes, then kept walking. Behind her, Kang Minho stood alone in the empty street, covered in blood, wondering if redemption was even possible, or if he just lost the only person who'd ever made him want to try. Jisoo didn't see Kang Minho again for 3 weeks. She quit Myeongdo. No explanation. Just an email to Mirai. I'm resigning effective immediately. The money stopped coming. The men outside the shelter disappeared, but nothing bad happened. Min recovered. The police closed the case. Gang violence suspects unknown. Mrs. Moon asked Jisoo once if she knew what had really happened that night. Jisoo lied. No. She went back to her 3 jobs. Back to the basement apartment. Back to Triangle Kimbap and instant ramyun. It should have felt like returning to normal. Instead, it felt like drowning. On a Tuesday in October, Detective Choi called her. We have new evidence in your father's case, he said. Anonymous tip. Detailed information about the night he died. Names, locations. Enough to reopen the investigation. Jisoo's heart stopped. Who sent it? We don't know. But if you're willing to testify about what you know... I don't know anything. Silence. Ms. Han... I don't know anything, she repeated and hung up. She sat on her bed and stared at the wall. Someone had given them evidence. Someone who'd been there. Minho. He was turning himself in. She should let him. He deserved it. Justice. Consequences. Everything her father had died fighting for. But when she closed her eyes, she saw him carrying Min out of that warehouse. She saw him covered in blood, asking for nothing. She saw him standing in the empty street, alone. The trial never happened. Detective Choi called again a week later. The evidence disappeared. Someone destroyed it before we could file charges. How? We don't know, but whoever gave us the tip made sure we'd never get another one. Minho had confessed, then erased his confession. He'd tried to pay the debt, then decided he couldn't. Jisoo didn't know if that made him a coward or something else entirely. 5 years later, Hope House had a new building. 3 stories, 20 beds, a playground, funded by an anonymous donor who sent checks every month like clockwork. Jisoo ran it now. Mrs. Moon had retired. Min was 13, healthy, mentoring younger kids. Jisoo still lived in Seongbuk-dong, a real apartment now. Windows that showed sky. She'd never married, never dated. Some wounds didn't heal. They just became part of you. On the anniversary of her father's death, she visited his grave. Someone had already been there. Fresh flowers, white chrysanthemums. She knew who. She never said anything. Sometimes, late at night, she wondered if her father would understand. If he'd forgive her for not testifying, for letting his killer walk free, for choosing mercy over justice. She'd asked Min once, "Do you want to know who saved you?" He'd looked at her with eyes too old for his age and said, "Does it matter? I'm here." Maybe that was the answer. Maybe mercy wasn't about deserving. Maybe it was about choosing to let someone carry their guilt alive instead of dead. Jisoo watched the sun set over Seoul and thought about a man she'd never see again, who'd killed for her father's memory, who'd bled for a child who wasn't his, who'd loved her the only way a broken man knew how, by staying away. She closed her eyes and whispered to the wind, "I hope you're free." Somewhere in the city, Kang Minho stood on a rooftop and wondered the same thing.